Thanks, Scott, and welcome everyone. I am delighted that you're here. We're here to talk about a real important topic, action planning, and how to take action on engagement results. About 2 months ago, a CHRO was sharing with me her vision of engagement and sharing her experience. And she said, you know, 80% of the effort of an employee engagement initiative is really after the results are created. It isn't the design, it isn't making sure the reports are right, all the work on the hierarchy, the organizational structure, all the mechanics. Yes, that's hard. It's even harder to change behaviors, create more engaging environments. So today we're going to talk about action planning and share 7 tips and insights from a number of different clients of ours who have contributed to us their best tips, things that have worked for them, and absolutely ones that we hope you can use. And you will get a couple opportunities to contribute to the discussion and chat some of the things that you found. So in addition, well, let's just get started then. So as we think about engagement action planning, I've organized this session into 3 views. One is the organization view. That's the strategic elements of action planning. So it's around action planning and what can we do and do better, tips, insights at that organizational view. Then you get into the trenches, the managers. And I love that picture of somebody scaling a mountain. It wouldn't be me. But you know, you think about them and what do the challenges they face, and if we want to improve action planning, what do we need to do for them? And lastly, that ground level are some of the foundational elements that I think you're going to see some things that are done in a very thoughtful way that as we've worked with clients, as our clients have done, that have shown that you can get even better at some of the foundations. So let's look at this, starting with the organization level. And at that level, we have 3 tips. One talks about segments or segmentation. The second, how to integrate. And the third is cross-functional effort. So with that, we've all heard about market segmentation. We hear about it all the time in marketing where companies are trying to brand their products and go after different segments. And so the first tip talks about employee segmentation. So as we think about that, this first client example comes from a retail organization. And what you're looking at today is the view of employee scores organized by their U.S. regions. You can notice the sample size on the left. So these hover around 2,000 respondents per region, and there are about 8 regions in the U.S. for this organization. And notice they all cluster pretty tightly around that 83%. Now, many organizations, and especially senior leaders, if you're going to talk to senior leaders, you may say, I'm going to just give them enough. They only gave me so much time. Let's just share this information and tell them what we're doing with the data. There's more. So as we look at that, let's drill down one level, because in this particular retail organization, regions are divided into districts. So as we think about districts, look at what the map is if we take the overall engagement index, still averaging 83%, but look how much more the distribution grows. Plus, in some districts, there are some real outliers compared to the rest. Kind of an interesting picture, right? We're going to go one more segmentation, because in this particular organization, we were able to capture, even though they were small stores, actual individual store engagement. And watch what happens. Again, 83%. Here's the distribution. And those other dotted lines are the first, second, third, fourth quartile. Wow. You can clearly see that engagement of employees is local. Every organization looks like this too. If you think yours doesn't, go back to the data and plot it, and I'll bet it does look similar. Here, the sample sizes are low. In this case, this client had a minimum N size of 8 respondents, but you're going to see some that go even higher than that. Now, the interesting part about this is that think about most organizations ask each of their managers, each of their stores or each of their district managers to come up with one come up with like 1 or 2 action plans to work on. But I'd like you to think about this, and as a thought starter, we're not going to chat this one, but I wanted you to think about it. Knowing this type of distribution, how would it change your action planning efforts? Would you do something different for the bottom quartile? Would you look at them and say, wow, they might need something more than just work on one thing? Maybe they need some stronger medicine, some more support and help. What about the people at the very top, the upper quartile? There's probably tremendous amount of best practices. And I'll tell you, the people in that top quartile, they're hungry for the data and they're going to take action. The second quartile, maybe so as well. And yet there's some great things they're already doing that could be passed on to the bottom quartile or anyone below the average. So when you think about it, think segmentation. Don't think all parts of your organization have one culture, one level of engagement. Now the second one we're going to talk about is integrate. When we think about integrating, we're talking about lots of people, and you'll hear it at conferences and you'll get it through your inbox. People talk about integrating engagement into talent management and business initiatives. But you know what? We're finding most people don't integrate them nearly as effectively or as deeply as they could or they should. In fact, engagement can impact all of these types of initiatives you see the listing around here. The one I like to look at is Lean Six Sigma. Most people in manufacturing are looking at that saying, how in the world can this affect engagement? Well, if you have a black belt going in doing Six Sigma work, trying to find ways to reduce errors or find ways to eliminate waste, how much more effective will they be if employees are motivated to contribute ideas, if they feel that their ideas are valued, and that they have the trust in the organization, all around employee engagement? And I'm going to go further into this level and use one that all of you probably are aware of, some of you actually probably are involved in, and that's leadership development. I believe there's a lot more we can do to integrate the engagement initiatives into leadership programs, and we're going to do today, I'm going to talk about the leadership programs into employee engagement initiatives. You say, Mark, how do you do that? Well, let's talk about that a second. Here's a way that you can integrate whatever you're doing to develop leaders into and infuse your engagement initiatives. So as we look at action planning, this happens to be on the left a template from our online tool. Most of our clients use an online tool to capture, track, measure action plans. But even if you have a PDF or a static version, most of them look something like this. And so what happens? First of all, you identify a topic, which could be an item, it could be a category. I'm using as an example, my manager gives me feedback, helps me improve performance. What happens next? You ask the manager to identify steps that they're doing to implement and improve that action item. So they're going to write down what they might be doing. Okay. Now, when they write those down, typically most strong partner organizations that do surveys should offer a set of resources to help. In our case, we have resources that people can access from CCL. We have resources of our own, key ideas and suggestions. We actually have a couple others as well that are coming in the next weeks and months. And what people can do then is they can use those. But think about those other measures, whatever tools and tips we have, are they integrated into your curriculum? The answer is probably not using the exact same words, the same phrases, the same approaches. What if instead you could list with your action plan the key concepts from your leadership and workforce development curriculum? There's no reason you couldn't, and in fact, your tool should be able to list those. Ours does, so you could list your own. But think about those resources and say, wouldn't that manager be better off if, in fact, in this particular question around manager effectiveness, that they could get access to the job aid that was in the course on giving feedback, or maybe the tips that are from that course on coaching and managing their employees, or a planner, a discussion planner that they were told they should use, maybe they forgot about it. Shouldn't those be incorporated into the action planning resources? The more we can reinforce things that are already done, the more effective your managers will be at gaining those skills. Great way to introduce those. So I highly encourage you to, if it's not in your group, go over to the group that's doing training and development and find ways to integrate those programs. Now in this session today, we don't have time to talk about the integration the other way of how to integrate engagement initiatives into leadership development programs. If you're involved in leadership programs and you'd like to know more about that, send me an email. I'd love to talk with you about it. I have a lot of passion around leadership development as well as engagement, and there are some great ways you can really accelerate the development of your leaders by making sure they're aware of that connection between these two very important areas of talent, of building talent. Now the third tip in the organization level comes from one of our key contacts, an HR executive at a medical software provider. And we asked them to share their best tip, and what they said is, you know, we approached our executive committee about implementing a cross-department cultural committee to look at different ways that we as an organization can move ahead. So instead of the classic version where the executive team looks at the data, makes decisions, pull a group together, and I love what they did. I bolded, made up of high-performing individuals. Get people that, some of your best people that care the most, that are the most proud, that want to see your group succeed at all levels, from frontline staff up to mid-level leaders. I wouldn't put any senior leaders on this committee. Have them look through the data. This organization had some tremendous results. They've done this for a couple years and are just ecstatic that it actually brought about a new reward and recognition program, new ideas for increasing senior level exposure to staff. It's so nice when that cross-functional team says, hey, we'd like to see senior staff more. I doubt that executive teams are going to bring that recommendation forward, as well as quarterly management meetings. So think about different ways of processing the data, analyzing it, be prepared so it doesn't add time to the process, but get that committee together and come up with some ideas. You'd be surprised at what you're going to come up with. We're now going to shift to the manager level and talk about those managers hanging from the cliff. And we have two tips that came from our clients. One is the power of reflection, big one for me, and better manager support. So talking about manager view in all cases, we know the adage, people leave bosses, they don't leave companies. So when we think about this, the more we can do to help managers be more engaging, the better. So as we look at the power of reflection, one way to do that is to have managers ask themselves and pose it to them in a way, institutionalize it, that what might they be doing, if they're saying it themselves, what might I be saying or doing or not saying or doing that's showing up in my engagement results? That kind of reflection is happening in all very strong leadership development programs today, the power of reflection. People are taking notes in journals more and more, helping people have time, not just talk at people, but give them time to think and process. And when people look at their data, they should be looking and seeing, gee, is there anything here that I should be, maybe I should pat myself on the back with, but then also it might be things that I need to say, maybe I thought I was doing better in this area than I was. So it's a great way to do that. It should be hardwired into action planning in your instruction guides, in your action planning session, help the power of reflection to really get introduced. Now the second tip, and I'm going to then ask you to get your ideas as well, is around building better manager support. And it works hand in hand with reflection. And this tip, I'm going to share some ideas and then share a client that really has leveraged this. But you think about, what are some of the things you want to keep in mind when you're doing this? Managers need to know and be able to share what's the purpose of the engagement survey from the employee's perspective. It's their opportunity to understand, it's their opportunity to contribute. So when you're doing action planning, you're sharing results, it's a time to listen, not defend. Some people mistake this and try to give rationale. Oh, I didn't coach because I've been out of the office a lot. That's not the time to talk about those things. It's the time to listen and figure out how you can do things better. And the last point I really like on this little box, be receptive to feedback. It never hurts to tell managers and refresh them that that's important. Another thing that we found can be very effective is to help equip your managers with some basic facilitation skills. Every good manager with a large group should know how to conduct a meeting well, whether it's pairing people up and having them talk in pairs and then sharing results, what we call a gallery walk, where you put different things on different flip charts and walking through. Easy to structure, easy to get people moving, and it really heightens the engagement of that action planning session. The third one, forced choice exercise, talks about giving people a couple of dots, sticky dots, and have them vote which ones are most important today of a list, and so on. Great way to build commitment to the action plans. And then, of course, for all of you that have HR business partners and others that are supporting your managers, there are some, equip them with provocative coaching questions to help them to really stimulate thought and better, deeper conversations with managers. And I believe, as Scott said early on, these slides will be available to you, so definitely you don't have to jot all these down, but they're really good ideas that you could please use and be more effective. And I love the way that there's an investment trust client of ours that uses this, and they put a twist on it. So here they said, you know, our managers are more successful in developing their action plans when they sat down with key executives on a one-on-one basis and asked for candid feedback about the survey results. So think about this. Before they go and share it with their teams, every manager in this organization is responsible and accountable to schedule a meeting with a key stakeholder. Yes, it could be their manager, but it's probably better if it's someone else, maybe a peer of their managers or their manager's manager. Schedule that meeting, come with their data, and ask the manager, hey, what do you see in the results? So the manager themselves says, here's what I see in my results, here's what I think to work on, and the boss of that manager or the stakeholder gives them an opportunity to give them feedback. It opens the door for that. Let's say you have an average manager and you don't want to be giving them feedback that maybe they do okay but not great. What a great opportunity if that data is showing that this manager could step up their game. It's a wonderful way for that boss of managers or the stakeholder to say, you know what, if you really wanted to do better, you could work in this area and help yourself. But now that's just the start. Think about the healthy process tension that takes place immediately after that conversation. That manager who walks back now has somebody that they're accountable to that's going to stop them in the hall and say, how did that action planning session go? What are you working on? Can I help? And if nothing gets done and there's no action or change in behavior, what does that say? And there's a lot of managers that would move and take better action because they've had somebody else looking at them. And from that stakeholder's view, think about how engaged that makes them back to the front lines. What a great way to engage them. And all it takes is a 20 to 30-minute meeting to require that they share with that key stakeholder. Well, now it's your turn. I'd like you to think about ways that you've been successful in supporting your manager's action planning efforts. So I'd like you to enter in the chat any successes you've had and send that out to us. Jot that down, and we'll report on some of those, and we'll capture these chats and any ideas you have and send them out afterward in the organization as well. So any things that, what have you done that might be different to support your managers? What do we have going on, Scott?
Just a reminder to everyone that the chat panel is available. You'll probably see a little blinking chat bubble up at the top of your screen. Go ahead and click on that and answer your questions in the chat panel. Don't worry, we will be the only ones that see your questions, and we'll go ahead and read them out to the group.
I see the first one from Linda. Thank you. You met with managers to help them distill information and create 1 or 2 action plans. So you met with them in advance. Great. You're using that same concept of help them before they go and and meet with their teams to get them calibrated so that they're not you know, all over the board, or you don't get, you know, 10 or 20 or 100 different types of action planning approaches. I love it. Others? I see Bill. Thanks, Bill, for your comment about helping managers tie back to some of their training. So you actually looked back and said, remember the leadership development curriculum that they were part of and how to feed back into that and say what aspects of that are could be leveraged in action planning. Love that as well. I think we have time for one more. Kathy, thanks for your comment. And it talks about, let me see, you said to around reflection and helping them commit to a personal action plan. What a great way to do that. Have managers not only commit to a group action plan, but a personal one. Good. Thanks so much for that. I love it. Any others that come in that you think about as you're going through, just keep chatting them away. We'll capture them. Now it's time to move to the ground level and the last two tips. Those are use innovation techniques and create focus. Totally different tips that came in. Let's talk about use innovation techniques. And I will say that I love to do things that get a double or a triple benefit, that have multiple benefits. And when you think about using innovation, I have a hunch that you can really get multiple benefits, especially if your organization has a goal or a strategy or an objective around innovation. This comes from an HR VP of a client of ours in a marketing and advertising firm. And what they did is, after sharing results, they instructed managers to ask, pie in the sky, what could we do to improve action? So they let the group say, all right, money's no object, time's no object, what could we do? Let's brainstorm the biggest thing to help move this area. And it frees people up from that constraint that people typically have of, oh, we tried that before, or there's no budget, so I better not recommend that, or gee, this is politically a touchy subject. No, what could we do? And then you break it down into what's realistically achievable within the current culture. And so that pie in the sky is a powerful way that many organizations do around innovation. And it's what else could we do? It's opening those open-ended questions. Go back, if you have any type of an innovation course that you are instructing your leaders on, a web-based course or some tips, infuse those into action planning, because that's a great way to help them practice the innovation skills and get action planning, and it'll be more engaging as an activity, because good innovation techniques are engaging by design. So highly encourage that. Great way to do that. So now let's turn to the last tip. And I've saved an interesting one for last, and it's called create focus. What do I mean by that? Not all survey items are created equal. If you have a list of whether you do 20 items, whether you do 30, 50, 80 items, not all are created equal. And we did research, and it's been a little while since we did this, and you'll see some that this has proven over time. But we looked back and realized that there are hierarchies of needs that people go through. You've all heard of, I'm sure, Maslow's hierarchy, but there are others as well that talk about that people need to be satisfied at that base level before you can advance to the more higher states. Well, we applied that same philosophy and some of the basic concepts of that to action planning and items. Let's look and see what that looks like. So what we did is that managers need to have focus, and we asked the question, where's your focus? In every survey, there are items that are very tactical, very basic, around the job, the environment, their supervisor, feedback, coaching, recognition, very basic day-to-day tactical things. They're also, in almost all surveys, very operational, or we could call them intermediate items, around teamwork, collaboration, communication, and so on. Comp and benefits fits in there. We did statistical research to prove that comp and benefits is more influenced at the middle level than at the tactical level. And then there are strategic things in almost every good engagement survey. Do employees feel that the senior management is moving the organization in the right direction? Do they have confidence in senior management? Do they align with the mission and vision? So when you look at questions in there and we think about those, most frontline leaders can't really impact operational and strategic items as well as they can tactical items. And typically we find that most organizations have gaps and strengths in all three. So what we need is we need to be able to focus our frontline leaders on more tactical things. So what we've done in this action planning prioritization model, and we developed this and it was pioneered at a very large diversified manufacturing organization, and I'll show you some of the results they've received since then. Here are example survey items, strategic, operational, tactical, and you get the idea of where we're coming from. It's a great way to focus managers that if any of the tactical items are in need, they need to work on them first. By and large, you can't move or you shouldn't move or try to take on a more operational or strategic goal if you're not doing the blocking and tackling well of the tactical level. And I said I'd show you some results. In this case, this is their results from starting with a baseline. We developed this in 2000, 2001, and we have pioneered it with them. And in fact, this graphic was displayed in a conference in 2012 that it shows that increase in engagement across levels, continual engagement. And in fact, in their 2013 and 2015 survey waves, they continued to increase engagement. And in fact, they were part with us in a chapter in an action planning and engagement book on this very approach because it was so effective. And now we have many, many of our clients adopt this approach and integrate it, hardwire it into action planning, and we'd love to share with you more about it, but it's very powerful in that. We actually have a white paper on the topic as well. If you're interested in that white paper, please let us know. Be happy to share that with you. Here's one of our clients. It happens to be a recreational vehicle manufacturer that was using this action plan for the first time in 2013. And you can see from their quote what they realized and how they saw that this really stepped up their game, raised the bar, helped them achieve more as an organization when you organize, focus, and help your managers focus on some of those tactical things first. So one last time I'd like to kind of ask for input. What ways do you help groups prioritize items to take action? And certainly if you have other tips, you certainly can share those as well, but I'd like to know, do you have any ways to prioritize those items on that action, on that survey, so people are not trying to take action on things that aren't getting traction? So we can ask you that, as well as kind of share some of the, Scott, are there some things that we can share in about this webinar as we're wrapping it up?
Well, one of the things that we wanted to do today, just to kind of play a little bit of a fun game, is those who do give us a response in the chat panel today, I'm going to read out a couple of names. If you hear your name and the first letter of your last name, and you go ahead and give us a response to this question, we'll send you a $5 Starbucks card. So I'm trying to encourage some participation in here. Megan J, Aaron M, Gabriella G, and Lacey B. If we see your name pop up in the chat panel with any suggestion, we'll go ahead and email you a $5 gift card to Starbucks after this webinar is over.
How about that? So Jennifer, you suggested in addition to data, we provide feedback from focus groups and then helped managers identify what were the hot issues. Great way to use focus groups to zero in on some of those things that maybe the issue's a bit deeper and you need to really get more information. What a great way to do that, to get some verbatims, get people to really discuss some of those issues in more detail. So thank you for that. I can hear all the keyboards tapping, Scott.
Mm-hmm. I'd say give people about another 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. And we can probably put the HRCI credit so people can see that this is approved for 1 hour, recertification credit hours. So you certainly can jot that down for those of you that are doing that. So with that, I am going to be,
Gabriella.
Gabriella, at our site we have regular status meetings with all leaders to share best practices. Fantastic. It's a great way to have others to learn, to give shout outs. What a nice way to do that. So thanks so much for contributing that, Gabriella. And I want to call people's attention to our next webinar, educational webinar, Big Data versus Your Data. And it's going to happen just after the first of the year. You can register for it at our tnswebinars.com website. It is a webinar that's going to talk about, everyone has talked about and heard about big data. And you know what, it can be, some people get tired of big data. I want to help me work with my data. So we're going to talk a bit about how to help you with the data you have, leverage that more effectively. So stay tuned for that. If you'd like to, I'd love to have you back on here. And at the end of this webinar, we're also going to have that survey that Scott mentioned. We'd love to get your feedback. What did you like? What would you like to see different? Please give us feedback so that we can make these better. So with that, thanks so much for attending. Scott, anything else from you? Otherwise, we'll...
No, if you do have any questions about this webinar or other webinars, please go ahead and head over to tnswebinars.com. You should be able to email us from there. There's also recordings of our past webinar. We did do a 4-part series on re-energizing your employee survey. All of the recordings and the slides are available there. And again, we'll go ahead and send everybody these slides and recording as soon as they are ready after this presentation. It usually takes about 24 to 48 hours.
All right. Hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.